This is the Balanced Growth Show with Dr. Travis Perry, helping successful business professionals like you achieve balance in their lives.
Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Growth Show. I'm your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with AJ Rounds. AJ is a seasoned sales, marketing, PR, and HR professional. While attending college, AJ sold door-to-door pest control. He was quickly promoted to VP within the company, where he recruited, managed, and trained teams across the United States. And he knows pretty much every airport in the nation. And he helped lead the company to several record-breaking $30 million plus summers. AJ's father taught him the value of entrepreneurship. This led to founding RevRoad, a venture services firm that infuses human capital into small companies, into large international firms, while also raising capital. RevRoad now has 61 companies under management. AJ currently owns 3 other small businesses and a portfolio of real estate. And as someone who loves the sunshine, you'll most likely find him outside hanging out with his 4 kids, wife, and dog. He also runs marathons. He bikes, skis, plays guitar, and drives a limousine, which tops the list of his favorite things to do. AJ, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks, Travis. Good to be here. That all makes me sound much cooler than I really am.
Well, when I heard about the limousine, it's funny because my mom told me about her family growing up, and her dad actually had a limousine company, and he would drive a limousine around, and they would rent it out, and it was kind of like a side gig. But
Yeah.
Is this like a stretch Hummer? I mean, how cool is the limousine?
No, it's fun. It's been this obsession since I was a kid. We've been doing it for, 14, 15 years. But it's one of those things where, when you're getting married or going out to an anniversary date or a prom, or maybe you're retiring, right? Those are really cool life events, right? But how much better is it when the limo shows up in front of your house and it's for you? And I don't know. I love being part of that experience and part of that memory for every person. So anyway, that's why we do it. It doesn't make a ton of money. My kids think it's kind of crazy and weird. My wife hates it because she thinks it's so ostentatious and ridiculous. But we have a good time with that thing. And it's a way to give back because, when people are having a hard day, or some of the philanthropic efforts we do, or even just the give back moments, we've done some things where I'll never forget the one where we had the opportunity to go to Primary Children's Hospital and take out this little girl that was 15 who only had a few weeks left to live. That was a highlight for her, and we got to be part of it. So that's why we. Very
cool. I love that. That's such a great thing. It's the cherry on top, right?
That's right.
It's that not so little thing that matters here. This analogy, yeah. I love it. That's so great.
It's the fun business.
AJ and I know each other just a little bit. I've been on his podcast down in Utah County. It was a great experience to be there in person. We're now catching back up and getting to know a little bit about him. But you can catch AJ's and my podcast on travisperry.com on the media tab. So let's talk about you, AJ.
And by the way, it's doing really well. It's getting a lot of traction. So go listen to it. It's our better hit. It's one of the better podcasts that we've done, actually. It's great.
Very good. Very good. I'm glad that I could provide some comedic value. But no, for real, I'm glad that you're here. And we want to talk about balance and growing businesses. You know a lot about growing businesses, not just your own, but many others out there. So tell us a little bit about kind of how you got into this space. How did you jump from being a summer sales guy into really helping businesses grow and become international superstars?
It's a great question. It's a loaded question. Glad we have a couple minutes because it will take you a couple minutes to get through. But yeah, I did summer sales, and that was pivotal because it helped me find my voice, helped me find myself, and give me the confidence to go after what I really felt was important. Okay. Not a fun job, right? And got a lot of rejection. As you know, for every yes you get, you need to get, at least 100 no's, and that's maybe 200 in the summer sales industry, right? Not quite, but it feels like it sometimes. And I thought, now that I've done this and I worked my way up the company and for certain reasons wanted to leave, because it was just too much travel. I was too hard on my family. And that I should probably touch on that just a minute, just because of the topic of this podcast is achieving balance. I learned early on what I needed to prioritize and what I didn't. And it was actually when I was VP in this summer sales company. And again, I was flying all over the country, seeing every airport that we talked about just a second ago. And that seems like a glamorous existence, but after you do it for a couple of weeks, it is not. And when you look at your hotel account and realize you have like 45 free nights because of all the times you've stayed at hotels, it's pretty bleak and it gets really discouraging. And I remember it was 2000, what was it? 2008, I think, something like that. We had two little kids, little, right? One was 1 and the other one was just 2 or 3 months old. And I was gone. And as always, Monday through Saturday, I typically flew out Mondays, came home Saturday nights, had Sunday, and then I flew out again the next day. It was ridiculous. And I realized, you know, I was just a robot. I was just going through and doing the training that I needed to do and doing the mentoring and achieving the numbers we had to meet with our quotas. And my wife called in tears one day. I think it was a Tuesday. I was in California training, and she said, "Listen, I can't do this anymore. It's either you or the business or me. You've got to decide what you're going to do." And at that moment, I said, "All right, it's not worth it." The money was fantastic, the exposure, the networking, the clients the client relations we were building didn't matter. So I called my the president of the company, my boss, immediately and said, "I'm done. It's over. I'm getting on a plane. I'm going home, and I'm resigning effective the second." And at that moment, I realized my family was more important to me than all those other things. And I've tried to live by that ever since. And thankfully, that happened when I was, young in my career, 29, 30, something like that. I've never forgotten that. And it was the best decision I ever made. Shortly thereafter, probably 9 to 12 months after that, the company got into some financial trouble. They overextended themselves. The meltdown happened that we all know, the recession, and they couldn't pull out and make it. So they actually went defunct. And so it was a kind of a blessing in disguise, really. But the bigger lesson takeaway there was when your family's on the line and you're at the very end of the rope, choose the family, choose what's most important to you. And thankfully I did. It'd be a lot different story if I hadn't.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's that was the summer sales gig. And from there I went to a lot of stuff in between. I went and grew I was the campaign manager for an infomercial company. We did a lot of work in California and Hollywood. That was super fun. Learned a lot, and then was recruited back to Utah to do some work with rebranding a company that was in the food storage space and the shelving space. They were called Shelf Reliance at the time. They soon rebranded with my help to Thrive Foods. And then I went and started my own business down in Vegas, and it was in the LED lighting space. A little bit early, probably too early, and didn't know the distribution models, and learned a lot of what not to do. And ultimately, we sold, at a small loss just to get out of it, because we realized it just wasn't the right. There were so many things we did wrong. Right? It wasn't the right model. It wasn't the right distribution. It wasn't the right. I didn't have the right, partner, and just all the things that went wrong. So I went to higher ed for a minute at Dixie State University at the time. It's been renamed something else since, Utah Tech, and was the marketing director there, and then was recruited after about 1.5 years from St. George back up to Utah County, which is where I've been ever since. And I worked in a oil and gas company. It was a little startup. They had about 2 million in revenue when I started. I was employee number 3 or 4, and we took it to about 30 million in about 18 to 24 months. And it was a really fun ride. And I learned so much about entrepreneurship and how to do things and how to work with clients and customers and build out those relationships and then deliver on our promises, right? And then show that value. And eventually, as we all know, again, it was the traveling thing one more time. It kept coming back to me in my career, and I couldn't get away from it. So traveling got too much, and the economy, not the economy, but really the political climate in oil and gas is very important to those companies. And eventually I realized, hey, I'm tired of this, up and down and kind of the roller coaster ride that it was. So a friend and I, Darren Hill, now the CEO of RevRoad, we went to a nonprofit and worked at a nonprofit to get that thing off the ground and help grow responsibility across the nation for kids, especially in curriculum in their classrooms. And we did some really cool things there for a year and a half. And once that organization was more stabilized and could function on its own, was self-sufficient, after we raised quite a bit of money for that organization, we reached deep down and said, hey, what's our passion? We recruited a few other co-founders, and together, the group of us, 6 of us actually, we said, what's the biggest challenge in the Utah area specifically that we're seeing? And as entrepreneurs, we thought, you know what? The challenge is that so many businesses are failing to the tune of 90%. And that depends on, which article you're reading at the time. There's different stats out there, but It's a high number. And we thought, how do we change that? That's terrible, because when companies fail, jobs are not created, the economy is not going as well as it could, and goods and services and technology that could come out in the marketplace is squelched, right? Because they don't make it. So put our heads together and said, we think that we have a new model that could really work, that could really help serve companies that are just starting out, startups, and in venture terms, it's pre-seed, seed, and even Series A companies that are raising money in those sectors. So we built a model where they would come in and pitch similar to Shark Tank, and we would bring them on, and instead of giving them money right away, we would give them the team that they would hire if they could: coders, developers, salespeople, marketing people, video people, accounting, legal, the entire package of professionals, so that they could grow their business quickly. Then once they hit certain benchmarks, then we could then give them money, and they would know what to do with it, and their success rate would be much higher. And to date, we're, about 75 companies now. There has been a few failures along the way, but our success rate is near 70%, which we're on our mission, on our mission to flip that from a 90% failure rate to a 90% success rate. Wow. We're almost there. So we're really excited about it.
That's incredible. I remember starting the very first self-employed-ish thing that I did as a financial advisor. And, this is back when we didn't have, the iTunes and podcasts. So I would listen to Brian Tracy sales training all day long.
He's awesome.
I love Brian Tracy.
Tom Hopkins, same thing.
Yeah. So all these guys, and I'm listening to Brian. He's like, you got to make your car, your university on wheels. And so I did. And I was finishing up my degree at BYU, and I was driving around Utah County. It was my old stomping grounds. I was driving around Utah County, visiting business owners and stuff. I was learning about business, and yeah, it kind of haunted me that these stats of most success happens after 5 or 6 failed businesses. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. But man, there's truth to this. There's a lot of truth, especially when universities don't teach entrepreneurship. And the one that I attended had a class or 2 that I should have taken, by the way. But it's mostly there's this idea that, no, you should just go out and try it. That's the best way to be an entrepreneur, is to try it. I'm like, that's the riskiest thing in the world. So to combat that myself, I began trying to figure out, how could I have a stable income and make this side hustle, my entrepreneur gig, happen in the short amount of time that I'm giving it, so that it can breathe life and be able to grow some wings and be successful. And quite honestly, I became a burnt out workaholic, because I'm doing 2 businesses. I'm working for the man, and then I'm working for myself. And, it's the whole, how much time do you have type of thing. And quite honestly, I was grateful the day that I was let go from a university, because it just wasn't the right fit. And I had about 6 months to figure it out. And those 6 months were the best 6 months ever, because I was stressed, but I was like, okay, I've got 6 months to do this. They're paying me, and I've got some money saved up. And so we really had nine months or so, because we, had emergency fund and things like that. And okay, honey, we can do this. but it really did give me, some runway, and I did take some classes on entrepreneurship, and I did, buckle down and say, okay, now it's time to really learn this. But how awesome is that for businesses out there who don't want to go through all that? Like, that cost me probably 10 years of my life, easy, between the education and everything else. How cool is that? I love that you guys are, trying to write this this equation and make it a 90% success instead of failure. Where were you 10 years ago, buddy? Now I know where you were. You were trying to figure it out too, you're trying to figure out the balance.
I was out there trying it.
Yeah, you were out doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I are out there trying to make it happen, and other entrepreneurs out there going, yep. So I love it. And thank you for sharing your story. Also, I want to point out that it sounds like this has been a struggle, and it is a struggle in business where you become more successful and all of a sudden people want more of your time, right? So you're flying all over the place, or you're being asked to speak all over the country. And all of a sudden it's like, you really have to decide what are your biggest priorities. So balance has been an important part of life, although still a struggle, right? For all of us, it tends to be. But let's kind of dig there. Why is it important that as you're growing these businesses, and now your business at RevRoad, why is it so important for you to keep that balance that you really set your mind on a long time ago? Like, I want this. I want my family to be first. Why is it important to keep doing that?
It's a great question. And it is so important because, that's what really matters, right? We're here and we're in our professions and we're doing a great job, and we're, every day is a new challenge and everything. But it is so easy to get caught up in the competition and the accolades and all those things, and start to, I love the saying that says, make sure you save enough of your best energy so you give your best self to your family when you get home every day, right? And I'm grateful to be on this podcast. I am not the model of that. There are days when I just drag home and it's 9:30 at night and the two little ones are in bed and the two older ones are doing who knows what, homework or whatever. We don't say hardly anything before they go to bed. And I feel like, oh my gosh, today I failed, right? I did not do a good job today. But it's important because, they grow up so fast, right? Just yesterday, my kids were those little teeny toddlers, and I was traveling all around the country, never seeing them, missing first words, first steps, first everythings. And you can never get those things back, right? And now I've got a junior and a sophomore in high school, and I'm thinking, I literally saw them as little kids yesterday, and the time just goes so quickly. And if we're not careful, that'll be gone, and then you'll have just a life full of regrets. And I have some of those, but I'm trying not to have many of those. I think everyone's going to have those, right? And one of the ways I purposely, the way I purposely try to get around that is I spend quality time with them and find out what they love and do those things, jumping on the tram with my little one, playing lacrosse with my son, volleyball and things with my others. But I do have several side businesses, and I try to build them around what my kids can help me do. So for example, the limo business, I usually don't go out and I have a driver now that drives and does most of that. But once in a while I will have to, pitch in and fill in, or I just want to because it's a friend or something. And also I'll drive, I'll be the chauffeur. And you better believe that I'm going to bring one of my kids up front with me, and we're going to get ice cream, during the downtime, right? That's just what's going to happen. And with Key Renter, our property management company that my wife and I run, she runs some of the books. And I thought we would never be able to work together ever. And it's been phenomenal. She has stepped up and she's loved it. And we're working in this other business together. And I love real estate and she loves accounting and, the controlling aspect of the company as far as financials go. And it just works out really good. So she's part of that company there. And so we have things to, talk about, related to business there. And then the most recent venture we have, which we're actually looking to sell, but for now it's a Dirty Dough franchise. It's a cookie shop, and my two oldest kids, they they work in the cookie shop and they sell cookies, and make everyone's day happier, when they come in to order cookies. So anyway, so I'm just trying to do businesses that are interesting to me, but I can also include my family and to help, be part of this growth with them, but also help teach them and train them of things related to business as we go about our day-to-day business life with those things too. So just a trick that I've come up with that kind of works, but again, others would say, "Oh, that's ridiculous," and
No, not at all.
You want to spend quality time, right?
No, I think so. As I've been researching this, I have a PhD in family relations. I have several degrees that are related to sociology, psychology. And what I've discovered is there's always this battle about quality versus quantity, quality and quantity. And it comes up often. People are like, hey, you just need to have quality time, or no, it's quantity that really matters. Well, the reality is they both kind of hinge on each other. In order to have those quality moments, you have to have enough quantity, because they're not always going to be, hey, all right, dad's home. You guys ready for, something awesome for 5 minutes? Like, doesn't work that way. It's contrived. It's fake. Your kids feel it. However, when they're wanting it, when my daughter comes up, Dad, I want you to play with me today. I'm like, oh yeah, let's go do that. And I'll stop and we'll make time for it. Or I love how you mentioned, like, I'll involve her in what I'm doing. So she likes to work out, because a lot of times I'm working out in the morning and she's awake. She wants to go do something. Like, hey, come do jumping jacks and jump rope while I'm, lifting weights or whatever in the morning at our home gym. My dad used to do this, and I think this is awesome. But if he had to work a Saturday, he's a plumbing contractor and they own their own business. And so he and the other partners, they would take, on-call jobs on Saturdays. Plumbing, if it breaks, you're in a bad spot and you need it now. If it's a Sunday and your house is flooded, you can't say, hey, let me put that on the schedule for Tuesday afternoon. No, you got to go. So, I mean, there were times where he was called to emergencies. And so on those Saturdays where he was working, he would take one of his children and say, hey, you're working with me today. I learned a valuable skill. I got to hang out with my dad. And I got to talk with him as we drove around. We talk politics. We talk about relationships. We talk about what's going on in my life. And it was very informal, but it was the quantity of time that led to quality moments. They weren't all quality. Sometimes I hated going to work with him because I wanted to do other things. But to this day, because of those experiences, I've never called a plumber in my life. I've been able to do everything I need to in all the homes I've ever lived in because of those experiences. It saved a lot of money. Yeah, right. And some people have even, hey, come do this job for me. So no, I don't do that anymore. Like, that's not a side gig that I want to do. But I love what you're doing. I think that is awesome. Now, I think to each his own. I'm not the balance Nazi. I'm a balanced man. I try to be a good example, but we all struggle. There's all, different situations that we're in and how old our kids are and where their station of life is. And right now I'm struggling because we have a brand new baby, and my wife and I are trying to balance the time and go to sleep and, have, some waking moments together. And it's a struggle. So, I really applaud you. I think that's awesome. And I think that is a great idea to keep those moments alive with your kids. As an entrepreneur, you've done many different things. Right now with RevRoad, let's talk about RevRoad. What have you done to really grow and scale that business? What's working? How have you been able to market this and grow it to what you've been able to do at this point with, 60 to 70 companies that you're working with?
Yeah, another great question. What we do here is it's very relationship based, right? I mean, it's possible you would see an ad online or something, or you may, see a video or something and get interested in RevRoad. And we do all that. We're very active on social, and we do have ad campaigns running, and, we're very active, online, of course. But where we find our best success is really referrals, right? And people talking about what we're doing because of what we've been able to do for their company. And of course, the entrepreneur community is very tight, right? And very small. As far as, it's a large number, but they're just really close knit, right? And so really that's just it. We're part of a lot of the events down in this area, also in Salt Lake County area. We're growing our presence in Florida as we expand into Florida, Texas a bit, and then we've got a fairly decent presence in California. So it's really just, who are we and what are we doing for companies? And it's word of mouth. That's been the best for us. And then just modeling, what we teach on a day-to-day basis in our own lives with our own businesses and our own track records and things like that. So it's all of those things, really.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of word of mouth referral business, which makes a lot of sense with companies of this size and the direction. Yeah. You do have I'm going to say, like, I've been on dozens. I like calculating, not hundreds yet. I've been on dozens of podcasts. And
just say hundred.
Yeah,
we'll never know.
Yeah, because you could go to my website and you see all the podcasts I posted, every single one that I know. It's there. So I think we're only in the dozens. But coming to your show, like I just happen to be in Utah, which is great. But it is still, it's a 2-hour drive for me, probably 2.5 hours, depending on traffic, if you go through Salt Lake at a bad time.
Appreciate that, by the way.
No, it's great. And the reason I say this is when I found out, like, hey, this is an in-person podcast. How cool is that? I've been on Zoom for 4 years and doing podcasts and talking to other people. And especially with COVID, like, everybody's, virtual, and podcasts are a thing that you can absolutely do that. But going to your studio, meeting you and your business partner, and even your tech guy, super cool. And I learned a lot from him, like just kind of how things were run. But being in person, it's a different beast. It is a totally different beast where I can network with you and talk to you before and after. And there's a relationship that's built there. Can you still do that virtually? 100%. And I've made some great friends, but I remember that experience more than and there are great podcasts I've been on, but I remember that experience because I physically had to remove myself from this office, go there, be there in person. And it was an experience. So let's talk a little bit about how you've built this relationship business, word of mouth. I mean, if the podcast is any indication, talk to us a little bit about what you do to build those relationships. Are they all in person? Are you flying people around? Are you out there, you taking them on your limo? Like, let's talk a little bit, like, what's different about what you guys do? Because I know this is definitely something that a lot of other entrepreneurs are doing, but let's dive into maybe what's working for you.
Yeah, happy to do that. And it's a work in progress, right? We're constantly getting better, and we are constantly trying to improve, right? And assess what's working, what's not. The podcast is doing phenomenal. So thanks for the shout out about that. We're now close to 70 episodes, I think, or 75, I can't remember. And they're getting a lot of hits. So we're grateful. And it is just, it's a niche that people want to know more about. It's founders that not only have made it, we have, those that have been on the podcast, like the Nicole Tanners, who are CEO of Swig, and Amy Reese Anderson, who had that, a fantastic exit, and Johnny Hanna from Homey, and some of these large companies that you hear about. But we're also having the entrepreneurs that are in the grind right now, right? And they're talking about things that they're struggling with, and hurdles that they're seeing, and ways to get around that, and giving advice and telling us who they follow and who their thought leaders are. And it's just really helpful information. So I think, to answer your question, and we try to do that across our entire company, right? Make sure that the content that goes out is valuable and is helpful and is making a difference, right? And in the early days, when no one knew about RevRoad, and when we were begging people to believe in us, right? We've all had those moments. we decided we would just go out and become part of the community. So we would attend all the events, sponsor the ones that we could, participate. We'd be on panels. We have a great relationship with the governor's office at the state of Utah, and got to know many of the local CEOs, and their teams, and just said, hey, we're here. We want to be helpful. And we constantly try to look at it from the perspective of how can we help you as a company, at RevRoad, right? And maybe that's funneling leads to, the accounting firms of the world, or the HR firms of the world, or, banks, or maybe it's, helping, others, as we're growing companies, we're funneling them to the services that they provide, or what they're trying to accomplish. And it's becoming, we're a lead gen for a lot of different services and a lot of different things in the area, because people are looking to build relationships with these up and coming companies. So, but really it's just being out there and being willing to put yourself on the stage. And we're very involved in Silicon Slopes and with all the venture, funds here in the area, and you just make friends, and as people feel a little bit threatened, or they feel like you're a competitor, you say, no, here's where we actually synergize, and here's where our paths overlap, and here's where we can help each other. And we send leads, and we send contacts, and we build partnerships with pretty much everyone we meet. And by doing that, you just become, very ingrained in the community, and they realize you're there to stay and that you're there to be helpful. And no, we can't help everyone, and no, we can't bring on every company. We've had probably over the course of the, last 7 years or so, we've had, I think, around 2,000 applications of companies that have applied. We only have, 75 companies that are here. So we've had to say no a lot of times. But whenever we do say no, and this is what makes us different, it's not just no, good luck, take care. It's more, hey, here's things we would change about your pitch, or here's things you need to build within your company, or here's the traction we need to see, or here's a couple leads that you should go follow that would help grow your revenues instantly. We try to add that value to them so that they leave with, with a sense of confidence and a sense of, hey, here's a couple nuggets that we can use to better our company. And surprisingly, we've had several companies reapply, and we've actually brought them on later on because they did what we told them to do. So it's where can you add value, and where can you be helpful? And that's really our mantra. Our mission, our values are 3. It's grit, growth, and gratitude. That's it. It's as simple as that. You got to show grit. We all do, to make things happen. We got to have a growth mindset. And in everything that happens, we need to show gratitude. And if we do those 3 things, life will be better. And we've seen RevRoad grow, and all of our portfolio companies grow as well.
Nice. It's really telling. You're very much, I want to compliment you on what the direction that you're taking this company, because some people play the lip service and they really just take. But I see from what you're doing with your podcast, with everything else that you've been a part of, you're giving, and you're trying to be helpful. Brendon Burchard actually says this: if you don't know what to do, just be helpful.
Right.
It trains his people. It's like, if you don't have a specific skill, you don't know what it is that you need to be doing, like, be helpful at your job, be helpful at home, be helpful, and that's such a great question. How can I help you? And if you can see something that needs to be done, and, home, work, wherever, like, be helpful, be that person that's thoughtful. So I love that. Grit, growth, gratitude. It's a great, those are great values to hang on and to, really stand for. So as you're building RevRoad, as you're helping other businesses, especially here in Utah, to grow and throughout the country, as you're now expanding, what would you say your biggest struggle is now that you're growing and scaling, that, might pull you out of balance? What is your Achilles heel? What is it that you're like, and I know you mentioned before, like, this is how I kind of combat the, not wanting to keep the balance, but what would you say actually pulls you away? Is it that you have so many ideas because you're an entrepreneur and it's just like, I want to keep working? Like, what is it for you? Is it being present, like delegation? Everybody has their thing.
No, it's another great question. You're good at this, Travis. My goodness.
I've done a few, AJ.
Yeah. No, this is great. It causes me to think. Yeah, there's always the shiny object syndrome, right? We can always get sidetracked. We try not to do that. We stay focused, right? Especially with our founders that we're working with, our portfolio companies, we say, hey, listen, you have to be all in. This is your full-time gig. You've got to burn the boats, right? Nothing else can happen in your life as far as professionally goes. You got to be focused, or we're not going to work with you because nothing happens unless you're focused, right? And we have to do the same, right? All the other side businesses and side hustles I have, they're run by teams. They're wonderful, thankfully. And so that allows me to focus on RevRoad because you do have to have that focus, right? The challenge we have as we grow, because we're still a startup at heart, right? We have 65 employees or so, valuation of a couple hundred million or whatever. But even still, we're kind of a startup, right? So what we have to realize is we need to scale our company as well, and which means we need to not only find and train and get the best people on our team, which we're currently working on and doing a fantastic job at. We also have to build the processes and the systems so that we can recreate, because it's been such a personal, how can I say this? It's been very genuine the whole time, and we put a lot of our hearts and souls into it as a founding team and as a leadership team, and then our teams have done the same. It's hard to sometimes recreate that in the same level of quality that we want. So our challenge is to find, the technologies and build the processes and the systems to be able to do that consistently every time with all of our portfolio companies and with all of our external relationships, including investors and partners and the people in the community that we work with. So we're working on it, and we don't get everything right, but we're making some great progress. This year's theme, we have a theme for every year, and a set of goals that corresponds with that theme. And this year's theme is level up. We're leveling up all of our services, all of our people. We moved to a new office just a few weeks ago to level up our physical space, that we needed more space and wanted it to be a little nicer. We're just trying to level up everything we can so that we can arrive, in 2024, ready to really just grow and grow exponentially. So that's what we're working on now.
Love it. I love it too. You're working on the things that you want to improve, and I expect that from you. Like that's just who you are. You're the type of person who wants to improve and continually be helpful. So thank you for sharing, and I appreciate your time today. As you've worked with so many entrepreneurs, and you are an entrepreneur at heart, and you rub shoulders with hundreds of great people, probably thousands of great people throughout your career, what have you seen is the biggest issue for other entrepreneurs as they're trying to grow and scale their businesses while also trying to keep that balance? What do you see in other entrepreneurs that they may be struggling with?
Yeah, that's another great question. It's interesting. We've learned a lot, and it's different. We started out with a certain thesis or hypothesis, and it's changed actually over the last 7 years that we've been building RevRoad. What we've learned is, we've thought before, it's all about business model. How is your business model? What is your traction like? How unique and defensible is your product, service, or technology? Do you have recurring revenue? Do you have multiple streams of revenue? All those qualifiers, right? We thought that was where it was at, and that's where we focused on. But what we've learned, like everyone, is that, or like in most cases, it's all about the people, right? So where we focus now is the founding team. Who are the founders of these companies? And who are they really, right? Are they just in it for the money? Are they in it for a quick exit? Are they in it to go, to pull an IPO really quickly? If so, typically that's not the best founder. And if there's any sort of fissures or fractures, or if the documentation is not in place for the founding team, most of the companies that have not succeeded at RevRoad have been due to a founding or a leadership team issue, right? So that's our focus now, is who are the people behind these companies? Why are they doing this? What are they trying to accomplish? And are they, I hate to get into all these alliteratives, but the other thing we look for in the people we work with, we call it the 5 H's, okay? It's head, are they smart? Hands, do they work hard? heart? Do they have passion, humor? Are they having a good time? Are they fun? I mean, can we laugh at ourselves? And most importantly, humility. So it's the 5 H's. And when they're humble, which is the most important one, they're teachable and trainable, and they listen and they take feedback and they ask additional questions. If they're not that, the other 4 H's don't matter, because they have to be humble to be successful. And really, anyone that's successful has an element of humility, or should, because that's what we've noticed, and that's what we've learned over this journey, is that it's the people that you really have to focus on. The business model and the financials and the go-to-market plans. Those things will come later, and we'll work those things out. But it's the people. If you got the right people on the bus, kind of like what Jim Collins says.
Yeah, it's good. Great.
And in the right seats, then it's going to be successful. If not, really nothing else matters.
Yeah, I'm glad you add that caveat. Yeah, you get the right people in the right seats. But if they're humble, that's an easier play.
That's right.
Hey, this is not working out for you in the marketing position, but man, I'm seeing your skills in the sales, department are greatly outweigh what you're doing here. I think a shift would be helpful. I've done that with team members, and it's been great for them and for the team. Everybody benefits. It's a win-win.
That's right.
As Cuffy focuses on.
Right.
Well, AJ, I know that your time is precious, and I appreciate you being on the show today. Thank you for your advice. I quite honestly, being a speaker and author, I love the alliterations. I love the analogies. I love the things that you can pull from, grit, growth, gratitude, head, hands, heart, humor, humility. These things will stick. And the reason why they stick is because they get stuck in your memory because of how easy it is to recall. And recall is everything. We have the memory in because it's simple. Like you can recall those things. And if you want to change the culture of your business or start the culture of your business off right, having that in place as the team members come on, so they know this is what we stand for, and these are the things that I need to be constantly working on. Man, that's just it's a simple, proven process, a system. I love systems. So thank you for being here, man. Any other any other last words? Anything else you would, advice you'd give to other entrepreneurs, or anything else you would say, hey, knowing what I know now, I would give you this advice on how to grow your business while keeping your balance.
Yeah, I would say for entrepreneurs, go for it, right? The biggest thing that holds entrepreneurs back is themselves. So if you have an idea that's validated and you can find a product market fit, go for it. What have you got to lose? Make sure you do it calculated and mitigate your risks, but go for it. Why not? Related to the theme of this podcast, which is finding balance, achieving balance. I love the book there in the background. I love what Nate Randall said, good friend at Gab Wireless. He's the CEO, and he recently had a post on LinkedIn that really is pertinent to this conversation and really struck me. And I've thought about it a lot ever since. This was about 3 weeks ago. And he posted a picture of, I think it was his son or his daughter's basketball game. I can't remember which one. And he said, what I do, he says, I can't find balance. To work 8 hours, sleep 8 hours, and recreate 8 hours, that's a myth. That doesn't happen. As much as we would like to think so, it's bogus. And he's like, I cannot do that. And I overwork many times. But he's like, what I do, which I thought was really helpful, is he says, I sit down with my wife and kids each week on Sunday and say, what are the non-negotiables for the week? What is so important to you that I cannot miss? Those things are calendared, and no matter what happens, I go to those things. Even if I have a board meeting and it's in the middle of the board meeting, he's like, and then I can work until 9:00 at night or go in at 5 a.m. in the morning, because I'm going to at least hit the non-negotiables. Right. And that's caused me to really think that's where I want to go. That's the direction I want to head, because I think that's the quality that you're talking about, the quality of time, and then the quantity of time, because you're doing what's important to them. And so that's kind of probably maybe my last tidbit for the show is that's how I'm going to try to get better at achieving that balance. And I invite others to do the same. Yeah,
I love it. Thanks for bringing that up. I commented on Nate's post there too, and he's exactly right. There's no such thing as 50-50 or 8-8-8. Like, it just doesn't work. You got to focus on your most important priorities, make them happen, make them non-negotiables, build boundaries around, and go after it. Thanks for being here. I appreciate, as always, AJ Rounds. If you've enjoyed this, guys, like, share, subscribe, follow us. And until next time, remember, live life on purpose. Thanks, AJ.
Thanks, Travis. See ya.